Okay, let's get into chapter 10, motivation and emotion. This is what drives us to do the things we do and why we feel the things that we feel. There are a lot of theories that go into these two topics. And when I say theories, they are just theories. They are not 100% proven. So I'm going to go into a lot that maybe have been disproven a little bit, or there's controversy over them, or whatever it may be. But don't take these for law. They're not laws, they are just theories. So let's get into motivation and emotion. So I'm going to start off with the theories of motivation, and I'm going to go from the most basic of ones to the most complex of ones. So the most basic one is the instinct theory, that we do what we do because of what's innately in us. So our instincts are unlearned complex behaviors with a fixed pattern throughout a species. This is like we are following what will aid in our survival, which is not learned. Our bodies automatically know what we need when we need it. So you think of, you know, an animal, you think of your pet dog that automatically chases after a cat. That's not something that was learned. That's what's in their instinct. That might grab food off of your plate. It's because they're acting on instinct, not on what is learned, which is, oh, you shouldn't do that. They've been trained to not do certain things, but sometimes their instincts take over, and certain dog breeds or whatever animal are more likely to do that than others, because maybe they've been bred to be hunting dogs or bred to be, whatever. And some are bred to kind of downplay those instincts and not listen to them as much. Next is the drive reduction theory. So we act when a physiological need creates an aroused state that drives us to reduce the need, and humans are motivated to maintain a state of homeostasis, which is a state of balance or equilibrium. So we have a desire, we have a need that drives us to do something which reduces the need. So we've got our primary drives and our secondary drives. Our primary drives are things such as hunger, thirst, and sex, whatever are our primary aspects of survival. So if we don't drink water, we're going to die of dehydration. If we don't eat, we're going to die of starvation. If we don't have sex and procreate, then our genetic line will not pass down anymore. So those are the primary drives. And then next are our secondary drives. These are things we've learned to want or need in our lives. So people lived for thousands of years without air conditioning, but now we've become accustomed to it and it's become a need. The way that our houses are built, the way that we live, we pretty much need air conditioning. So money, we don't absolutely have to have money to survive. There are ways to survive without money, but we've become accustomed to it, and that's just our way of life. We have learned that we need money. Comfort, we don't absolutely have to have comfort. We don't have to have a bed. We don't have to have those things to survive, but we need them because that's the way we have learned to live. And so actually our secondary drives reduce the drive of our primary drive. So if we are comfortable, we don't really have to drink as much water. If we have enough money, we don't feel the other primary drives as much because we are kind of taken care of. So that's what drive reduction theory is we have a physiological need, and that's to bring our bodies back to homeostasis, which is a state of balance. If we're dehydrated, we need water. If we are hungry, we eat. So that's the drive reduction theory. Okay, we're starting to get into something a little bit more complex, less on just the basis of survival. So now is the optimal arousal theory, that we do things, we're motivated to achieve an ideal level of arousal, which is alertness, awareness. So if we are, say, too jittery during a performance or before a performance, whether that's, on a stage or whether that's sports, whatever it is, it can actually hinder our performance, but so can being under-aroused. So according to the Yerkes-Dodson law, performance generally peaks with a moderate level of arousal. So let's say you go up and you're going to perform a solo in front of the crowd at your, the musical, and you are too nervous, you are jittery, it can make your voice shaky and make your range actually be diminished. And so you're more prone to mess up. And also, if you're under aroused, if you're like, whatever, nothing bothers me, then you're not taking it as seriously. You need a certain level of arousal to give you more pinpoint accuracy, but not too much so that you're thinking about it too much, and you're overdoing it, and you psych yourself out, would be kind of a too much arousal. Okay, next is we do things based off of a hierarchy of needs. According to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we see this pyramid right here, and we have to go from bottom to top. We can't get to the top without having the bottom foundations first. So some needs must be fulfilled before we will be motivated to achieve other higher goals. So physiological needs, that's food, that's water, that's shelter, that's just being our basic needs taken care of. You can't you can't worry about your high self-esteem or belonging with a group of people if you don't have your basic needs taken care of. So once your basic needs are taken care of, you can then worry about your safety. Do you live in fear? Are you worried that you're going to get hurt? Do you live in an abusive household? Do you live in a scary neighborhood? Whatever it is, do you have a bully at school? Whatever it is, once you've met all your physiological needs and your safety needs, well, then you can move on to, do I have friends? Do I have family that love me? Do I feel like I belong with anybody? So once you can move on from, okay, I've got all my needs met, I feel safe, I feel loved, then your esteem, how do I feel about myself? Do I think highly of myself? Do I take care of myself? So once you've moved on from esteem, then you can go on to self-actualization, which is becoming your true self and fulfilling your highest potential, your full potential. So once you've had your needs taken care of, you feel safe, you feel loved, you feel pretty good about yourself, and you've reached your highest potential, well, then you can bring it down to other people. Self-transcendence is going beyond the self to help others and experience a higher truth. You're serving the greater good. You can't serve the greater good when you don't have your basic needs taken care of, or you don't feel safe, or you don't feel loved, or you feel like you are not worthy of anything. So it's a pyramid where you have to have the rung below you taken care of before you move on to the next one. And so that is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that what motivates us is whatever bar we're on. So say I'm at the bottom and I don't have access to a house. I don't have any place to live. Well, I'm not going to worry about, my safety if I don't have a place to live. I'm not going to worry about if I have friends or not if I don't have a place to live. And if I don't feel safe, how can I worry about how I feel about myself if I'm worried that, every morning when I wake up, this could be my last morning? I'm not going to worry about if I have friends or not, because I need to take care of myself. Or I'm not going to worry about, oh, do I think I'm a good person or not? I don't care. I need to worry about whether I survive the next day or not. So that is what Maslow's hierarchy of needs is. Next is, how are we motivated? Does it come from within, or does it come from external rewards or external factors? So extrinsic motivation, so it comes from the external, is when people are motivated to engage in a particular behavior to gain a reward or to avoid a negative outcome. This is, you don't do your homework because I love doing my homework. You do your homework either because, maybe your parents say, I'll let you have dessert if you do your homework, or I'm afraid of getting a bad grade if I don't do my homework. You're avoiding a negative outcome. Most people, I'm not saying all, but most people don't just do their homework because they like doing homework. And then intrinsic motivation is engaging in a behavior for the sake of enjoyment. Maybe you're someone that just loves reading and you don't care about AR points. In elementary, middle school, you have to get AR points. You don't care about that. You just love to read. But someone that's like, I have to read because I have to reach my AR goal. Well, that'd be extrinsic motivation. And there's something that can happen called the over-justification effect, which is when an external incentive is added to behaviors that are already driven by intrinsic motivation, thereby decreasing internal motivation. So that would be like the AR points. I grew up, I loved to read. And so I would just do it in my own free time. I love to read all the time. And then we had the AR points, and that gave a different kind of motivation to do it. It might have changed the kind of books I read, or maybe changed the speed at which I read the books, because I had this different, my intrinsic motivation dipped because it was traded out by some extrinsic motivation that if I reached my AR goal all year, then I would win, a pizza party, and I'd get to hang out with my friends and do all that kind of stuff. So what motivates you to do the things that you do I'm sure that you have some things that you have intrinsic motivation, and some things you have extrinsic motivation. And I read in the textbook that when it comes to, say, exercise, and you exercise for the enjoyment of it, because you love to move your body, you love the way it makes you feel, you just love working out, that'd be intrinsic motivation. But once that changes to I want to work out to lose weight, the over justification effect can occur, and you lose some of that for the sake of enjoyment exercise, and it strictly becomes it decreases your internal motivation, and you're relying on external motivation, which is weight loss, which can actually decrease your likelihood of not only going to the gym, but enjoying your time at the gym. So just be wary of that. Just, enjoy movement, take care of yourself. And if there are things that you are intrinsically motivated, try to keep it intrinsic. Internal motivation, I think, is the strongest. If you do something to enjoy it, then you're going to keep doing it. But if you're doing it for an external reward, sometimes that motivation fades away. Okay, now on to the self-determination theory. According to this theory, all humans have three universal psychological needs, including autonomy, relatedness, and competence, that must be satisfied in order to facilitate a natural tendency toward human growth. That there are three things that we must have in order to feel motivated to become better or to push ourselves any more at something. So first is autonomy, the need to be causal agents of one's own life without being controlled by others. I want this to be my decision. I want to do this on my own. I don't need you forcing me to do it. I don't need you doing it for me. Let me do it on my own, and let me do it my way. Okay, next is relatedness, the need to feel connected to other people in meaningful ways. You need to have friends. You need to have people that are on the same page as you, that just get it. If other people get it, then you feel not so alone, and you say, okay, they did it, I can do it too. And then competence, the need to feel effective when interacting in the environment. When you fail, it can be a very big detriment to your morale, and you don't feel competent anymore. You can say, I just can't do this whenever you fail a test, or mess up something at work, or whatever it is. Maybe you failed the first test in this class, or you forgot to take it, and you're like, man, I don't feel competent whatsoever. Maybe college isn't right for me. Well, you need to feel competent in order to feel motivated to do something about it. If you don't feel competent, then you're not going to keep studying for the test, because if you think, well, I'm just not going to be good at this anyway, well, then you're not going to feel motivated to study. But if you say, okay, I can do this on my own. I know, I feel like I'm part of a community at Northwestern, and I know I can do this, and competence that I have the capability, as long as I try my best to pass this class, well, then you're going to feel more motivated to try hard and to study and to do your best in this class. So that is a self-determination theory. Okay, lastly, on the theories of motivation, and then we're going to have a pretty long review on that. According to Dweck's self-theory of motivation, people hold different beliefs about the nature of intelligence. Some people think that intelligence is unchanging, and other people think that intelligence is a constantly changing thing. So people with a fixed mindset hold on to the belief that our abilities are inborn and unchangeable, that you fail a test, well, that means I'm just not good at that subject, and I'm never going to be good at that subject, no matter how hard I try. So I should just move on. But a growth mindset says that the belief that one's abilities can be developed through effort and dedication. If I put in the time and the effort and I have the resources to do this, then I can be better. I can pass this class. I can get an A. I can do whatever I set my mind to as long as I give enough effort and dedication to it. So it's really important. People that have a fixed mindset are not going to be motivated to do things that take effort, because if it takes effort, then they feel like they just can't do it. If I can't do it automatically, then I'm just not going to be able to do it. But someone with a growth mindset says, okay, I can't do this right now, but if I keep trying and I dedicate some time and effort into it, I eventually will be able to do it. So it's important to have a growth mindset to say, yes, while I can't do it right now, I believe I will be able to in the future if I try hard enough. Okay, let's go through a long review. We've got 11 questions. So blank are unlearned complex behaviors with a fixed pattern throughout a species. That would be C, instincts. Number 2, when Matea yawns in class, her professor told her not to feel guilty because this is an unlearned reflexive behavior. What theory of motivation was her professor trying to demonstrate? B, instinct theory. It's not learned. Number 3, when you are working outside in the 90-degree heat and are so thirsty that you take a drink from the garden hose, you're responding to a blank drive according to the drive reduction theory. B, primary drive. It's the things that are essential to your survival. Number 4, one limitation of the drive reduction theory is the inability to explain people's motivation to blank. D, increase arousal and disrupt homeostasis. And we didn't talk about this, so I'm going to go over this right now. So sometimes we as humans, we tend to want to increase arousal and disrupt homeostasis to keep doing what we're doing because we enjoy it or because we like the way it makes us feel. So sometimes we ignore our body's cues and keep doing what we want to do. Maybe you're just having a lot of fun playing basketball with your friends, and you're on a roll and you want to increase arousal because you want to, keep shooting those threes and keep swishing them, and, you're posting up on your friends, but it's 90 degrees outside and you're really thirsty, but you're ignoring that primary drive. You're ignoring that cue that tells you what to do. So you're increasing your arousal and disrupting homeostasis. We can't explain why we do that. People can't explain, researchers can't explain why someone would ignore their primary drives, would ignore the basics of our survival to increase our arousal. Okay, number 5, Yanni feels at his best when he has a challenging rock face to climb. He loves the feeling of exhilaration he gets when he attempts a difficult climb. He isn't motivated to read articles assigned by his professors. What theory would best explain Yanni's preference for risky adventures? D, optimal arousal theory, that gives you higher levels of arousal versus the very, very low levels of arousal that I'm guessing reading articles assigned by his professors would give him. Number 6, Eliza has been training for her 10K race for months. The morning of her race, she feels ready, but has a few butterflies in her stomach. She knows she has a moderate level of nerves or arousal, which leads to the best performance according to the B, Yerkes-Dodson law. Number 7, Frederick has so many student loans he can't afford rent on an apartment. Most of the time he lives in his car, and even though he has a job, he can't seem to make enough to save for the deposit and rent payments. He rarely gets a full night's sleep, and as a result, he has difficulty concentrating at work. He is jumpy and scared at night and is worried all the time. Frederick is struggling to fulfill which 2 of Maslow's needs? C, physiological and safety. He doesn't have a roof over his head. He doesn't have stable shelter, and he doesn't feel safe. So those are the 2 basic needs in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So how can he worry about other things in his life if he doesn't have his physiological and safety needs taken care of? Number 8, Macy decides to eat all the vegetables on her plate so she can get a cookie after dinner. What type of motivation is Macy responding to? A, extrinsic. There's a reward that she's going to give herself for eating all her vegetables. Number 9, Harry loves to read and will do it on his own without his mother telling him to read. This is an example of what type of motivation? B, intrinsic. He reads it. He likes to read simply because he enjoys reading. Number 10, Shakir has always been good at math. She usually earns the top score on her math tests. When she took a standardized math test and only received an 85%, she felt horrible for a week and refused to leave her room. Shakir's need for blank was shaken. B, competence. She didn't feel competent when normally she can, receive a 95% or higher without even trying. It just automatically came to her when she got an 85. She's like, oh, maybe I'm not good at this. I'm just not good at this anymore. Her need for competence was shaken. Number 11, Omar failed his first psychology test and thought, I'm just not smart enough for college. This is an example of what type of mindset according to Dweck's self-theory of motivation. A fixed mindset. Okay, now on to emotions. So first off, there is a range. There's a huge range of emotions we can feel, and that lies on a valence, a positive or negative value along a continuum assigned to an emotion. So we have some that are low or high valence and some that are low and high arousal. So high valence and high arousal would be you're alert, you're excited, you're elated, you're happy. High valence but low arousal. You're content, you feel serene, relaxed, calm. Those are things that we enjoy feeling. But things that have high arousal and low valence, tense, nervous, stress, upset, ooh, we don't like those ones. And then low arousal and low valence, we especially don't like these ones, sad, depressed, lethargic, and fatigued. So we like to try to keep it on the right side, on this right side of this continuum. And we try to keep out of the left side, especially low arousal and low valence. So emotion is comprised of 3 things: physiological arousal, expressive behavior, and cognitive experience. So to break that down, let's say, for instance, you are wanting to dive off of a high dive that is, let's say, 10 meters up. That's pretty high. That's over 30 feet. So you're wanting to jump off of the high dive. So your physiological arousal would be maybe your heart's pounding and you've got shaky knees. Your body is telling you something like, hey, this goes against our survival instincts. Why are we so high off the ground? Let's get back down on the ground. So your expressive behavior would be turning around and climbing back down because your body is telling you, don't do this. We're not doing this. And then your cognitive experience would be seeing someone else on the high dive and knowing what that feels like and just how scary it is. So your emotion is comprised of those 3 things: your physiological arousal, your expressive behavior, and your cognitive experience. The more we are exposed to something, the less processing our brains have to go through in order to elicit a response. So that is according to the exposure effect, when the familiarity of a stimulus primes us to react with a certain emotion. So there's 2 different pathways that our brains go through in order to know how to react to a situation. So first, we've got rapid subcortical pathway. This is where messages are sent directly from the thalamus to the amygdala without going to the cortex of the brain, enabling quick behavioral responses without first making a cognitive interpretation. And I talk about something similar to this, although it's called something differently in social psychology. It's called our automatic and controlled processing. So this would be our automatic processing, that our brains have not had a chance to process it and think about it. We just automatically react. Our body reacts, our emotions react. So let's say you just moved from out, you grew up, 20 miles out of town, very rural. You don't have any neighbors for miles. It's very quiet. There are no noises. So when you sleep, it's completely silent at night. And let's say, you grow up and you decide to take your big move to the big city, and you move to New York City. I'm just thinking of a loud loud city that is loud at all hours of the night. So you move to the city and you're hearing noises all through the night that scare you. And the first several nights, you hear a loud bang or you hear something and it jolts you awake and you're terrified before you can process and say, okay, it's, I'm safe in my apartment. I'm okay. So then we have the slower cortical pathway. Messages are sent from the thalamus to the visual cortex and then back to the amygdala, following your perceptions to affect your emotions. So this is when your brain has a chance to process, like, okay, I'm okay. Everything will be okay. I'm safe in here. Nothing's going on here. But as time goes on, your brain doesn't need to process it over and over again. According to the exposure effect, you say you've been there for 3 months, 3 months later, and you're sleeping through all of it because your body knows and your brain knows that you are safe, that you've been exposed to those sounds for months now. It's nothing new. It's nothing to be alarmed of. And so you have this familiarity with these stimuli. So you don't have to react with a strong emotion anymore. In fact, you can probably sleep through it. So you have your automatic processing, which is you jump up and you're like, oh my gosh, what is that? Is someone breaking in? Like what on earth is going on? And then you have your controlled processing, which is the slower cortical pathway, which is deliberate thought, processing information, the situation with your brain and coming upon a more logical explanation. Okay, so sometimes, most of the time, depending on what kind of mood we're in, it determines how we interpret the world around us. This is called mood congruent processing, the tendency to selectively perceive stimuli congruent with one's emotional state. So when you're in a good mood, you're more likely to picture things and perceive things as good, as happy, as, things are going okay. I've got nothing to complain about. People are being nice. I'm just kind of bebopping my way through the day. But let's say you're in a bad mood, something happened that put you in a bad mood and you're just irritated at everyone. You don't want to, meet new people. You don't want to, you don't really want to participate in class. You don't want to, you're just you're perceiving the world as more combative. You're processing the world according to the way that you feel in the moment. And that's mood congruent processing. And sometimes, because of that, and knowing that, you have to regulate your moods, emotional regulation, the use of cognitive strategies to control and influence our own emotional responses. Sometimes you have to know, okay, I know that I'm more likely to over respond to or overreact to this situation. So I have to tell myself, okay, Rachel, calm down. Everything is okay. Just because you may not be in the best mood does not mean that everyone has it out to get you. You have to change the way that you're thinking, the way you're perceiving the situation. And sometimes that comes along with masking, when you express one emotion outwardly while experiencing a different emotion internally. Sometimes you just have to say, you know what, even if I can't change the way I feel, it's not appropriate for me to be putting those emotions onto other people. Sometimes I just have to mask the way I feel. And I know that we like to be open about the way we feel, transparent about the way we feel. But sometimes there are situations where that's not appropriate, where that you are not responding in a correct way. And although you're having a hard time regulating your own emotions, you don't have to put those emotions on other people. So sometimes you have to mask it for your own good, for other people's own good, for your own safety, whatever it is. But sometimes you have to undergo masking. And then lastly, we're going to get into 3 theories of emotion. These are some more modern ones. There are some older ones that are in the textbook, but I felt like those have been debunked for so long. I didn't really feel the need to go over those. So let's get into some. And remember, these are theories. These are not laws. These are just ideas of why we feel the way we feel. So according to the 2-factor theory, this says that the cognitive evaluation following physiological arousal leads to the experience of emotion. So we are physiologically aroused by a situation, and then we cognitively process that situation, which then leads us to feeling or experiencing an emotion. But kind of on the opposite end, we have the cognitive mediational theory. And this is where the cognitive interpretation of an event or stimulus mediates or comes before the physiological arousal or emotional experience. So it's flip-flopped, that we cognitively interpret something, which leads to physiological arousal, which leads to an emotional experience, where the two-factor theory says we have physiological arousal, which leads to cognitive evaluation, which leads to an emotional experience. So those are the opposite of each other. And then something kind of completely different says, the facial feedback hypothesis says, as long as there's no other competing emotions, or emotions that are feeling stronger, that our own facial expressions can influence emotional experiences. That if we just kind of fake it till we make it, if we just put on a smile, eventually that's going to influence us to feeling happier. Or if you're just kind of pouting and you've got a face, a sad or a disgusted or an irritated look on your face, that can influence the way that you eventually feel, that can influence your emotions. So these are all interesting. I want to know what you guys think. I'm going to have this be your journal, that especially the two-factor theory and cognitive mediational theory, but you can also use the facial feedback hypothesis. Like, which do you think comes first? Do you think that we process things cognitively and then our bodies respond to it and then we experience the emotion, or vice versa? And what do you think about how facial expressions can affect your emotions? I want to know what you guys think. So I'm going to assign that as your journal for the week. Okay, that is all for this week. Bye.